One human surrounded by alien huntresses and a night he'd never forget. The unexpected visitor. The crash had been spectacular but not deadly. Elian Reeves wiped sweat from his brow as he surveyed what remained of his research vessel. The Starseeker lay half-buried in the soft violet soil of Noctiva, smoke curling from its ruptured engine compartment. Towering vegetation surrounded the small clearing, plants unlike anything in Earth's archives, massive trees with translucent bark that pulsed with internal light, their canopies filtering the glow of 3 moons overhead. "Perfect," Elian muttered, checking his atmospheric readings. "Breathable air, but communications fried. Central Command won't even know I'm missing for another week." The archaeologist sorted through his survival gear, assembling a small camp beside the ship's wreckage. His mission to document ancient ruins on Noctiva's smaller moon had ended before it began, diverted by a meteor storm that had sent him spiraling to the planet's surface instead. Unknown to Elian, 3 sets of iridescent eyes tracked his movements from the dense underbrush. The Lunari Huntresses had been following the streak of fire across their sky, tracking it to this impact site with silent efficiency. Their slender forms moved without disturbing a single leaf, skin shimmering with patterns that shifted to match their surroundings. Mira, the youngest of the 3, tilted her head with fascination. Unlike her sisters who clutched their crystal-tipped spears with tension, she studied the visitor with open curiosity. His form was similar to theirs, but different, lacking the luminescent patterns that rippled across Lunari skin, his movements heavier, but purposeful. "We should alert the elders," whispered Lyra, her voice melodic even in its hushed tone. Her long fingers tightened around her weapon, the eldest of the hunting party naturally assuming command. Neva, second eldest, narrowed her eyes. "Or eliminate the threat now," she suggested, notching a dart into her blowpipe. "No outsider has walked beneath the starfall trees in 3 generations." Mira placed a gentle hand on her sister's arm. "Look at his tools, his manner. He builds, he doesn't destroy. This is not a warrior." Her fascination overrode caution as Elian activated a holographic map, bathing his campsite in blue light that danced across his features. The sight proved too tempting for Mira. Against her sister's urgent whispers, she stepped forward, emerging from the underbrush like a living shadow gaining form. The bioluminescent patterns along her arms and face pulsed with excited curiosity. Elian froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm before stopping midway. Standing before him was the most beautiful being he had ever encountered. Humanoid but ethereal, with eyes that reflected the moons like liquid silver. "Hello," he said softly, slowly raising empty hands in a universal gesture of peace. "I mean no harm." Mira studied him, then mirrored his gesture, raising her own hands. Behind her, Lyra and Neva emerged reluctantly, their postures tense but weapons lowered. The night air hummed with tension and possibility as 2 worlds met beneath the glow of the starfall trees, neither knowing how profoundly this encounter would change them all. Language of light. The next 3 days unfolded in a dance of cautious communication. Elian's translation algorithm struggled with the Lunari language, a complex blend of spoken words and bioluminescent signals that rippled across their skin. Mira proved an eager teacher, visiting his camp each dawn while her more suspicious sisters maintained a watchful distance. "Sunrise," Elian would say, pointing to the horizon where Noctiva's amber sun breached the tree line. "Kiraleth," Mira would respond, the patterns on her forearms pulsing in synchronized waves. Her silver eyes studied his reaction, delighting in his attempts to replicate both word and gesture. By the 4th morning, Lyra had reluctantly joined their lessons, her expertise in tribal history proving valuable. Only Neva remained aloof, watching from the shadows with narrowed eyes. "Your ship?" Mira asked, touching the damaged hull of the Starseeker. "Can you make it fly again?" Elian sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Parts are damaged. I need materials I can't find here." He'd been scavenging what he could from the surrounding forest, crystalline resins that might substitute for circuitry components, mineral deposits that could reinforce the hull breach. His knowledge of xenoarchaeology proved unexpectedly useful in identifying potential resources. "Our village has metals," Lyra offered reluctantly, "from the sky stones that fall during the great meteor showers." Elian's eyes widened. "You could take me there? To your village?" The sisters exchanged glances, a silent conversation flowing in light patterns across their skin, too rapid for Elian's translator to interpret. "It is forbidden," Neva interrupted, finally approaching. "No outsider may enter the sacred perimeter." "But the elders might grant exception," Mira countered, her patterns flaring with emotion. "If they understand he seeks only to return home." That night, as Elian worked by lamplight on salvaged components, Mira slipped away from her sister's watchful eyes and returned to his camp. She found him asleep, diagnostic tools still clutched in his hand. Gently, she removed them, studying his peaceful features with fascination. When Elian awoke, she was sitting nearby, weaving something from luminescent fibers. "What's that?" he asked, voice husky with sleep. "Protection," she answered, finishing the bracelet and offering it to him. "Tonight we go to the village, but secretly. The Council of Elders meets under the third moon. They will listen, but we must approach properly." Their fingers brushed as he accepted her gift. The contact sent a surprising jolt through both of them. Her skin patterns flared brilliantly while a flush crept up his neck. "In our tradition," Mira explained, her voice softer, "when one gives protection to another, it forms a bond. I will speak for you before the elders." "Why would you do this?" Elian asked. "Risk yourself for a stranger who fell from the sky?" Mira's eyes reflected the campfire as she leaned closer. "Because your heart shines through your skin even without our light speech. I see curiosity where my sisters see threat." Her fingers, delicate but strong, traced the line of his jaw. "Perhaps the stars sent you to us for reasons beyond your understanding. Or mine." The intimacy of the moment hung between them like suspended starlight, both aware of boundaries being gently tested, of worlds beginning to intertwine. The Sacred Grove. The Lunari village sprawled across the valley floor, structures grown rather than built, living architecture of shaped bioluminescent plants that hummed with gentle energy. Elian followed Mira through shadow paths, marveling at the harmony between the Lunari and their environment. Homes pulsed with the same patterns as their inhabitants, responding to emotion and need. The Council of Elders had been less hostile than expected, but ultimately non-committal. They permitted Elian to remain while they deliberated his request for assistance, assigning him to stay in an isolated dwelling at the village edge. "They fear what they don't understand," Mira explained later, bringing him a meal of crystal fruits and something resembling bread. But fear can be overcome with patience. A week passed as Elian gradually earned cautious acceptance among the Lunari. He offered knowledge freely, showing their craftspeople earth techniques for metalworking that improved their own methods. In return, they taught him to identify plants with properties that might help repair his ship's more organic components. Lyra had become an unexpected ally, fascinated by his stories of Earth archaeology. Even Neva's hostility had softened to grudging tolerance until the night of the Great Hunt. Massive predators, six-limbed beasts with luminescent stripes that mimicked Lunari patterns to lure prey, descended on the village's outer fields. 3 young gatherers were cornered before the alarm could be raised. Elian heard the commotion and grabbed his pulse rifle, technology he had thus far kept hidden to avoid frightening his hosts. Without hesitation, he raced toward the screams, arriving just as Neva and 5 hunters formed a defensive line before the snarling creatures. "Stay back," Neva shouted, but Elian moved forward, weapon raised. The pulse rifle's blast scattered the predators, saving the hunting party from what would have been devastating losses. In the aftermath, Neva approached Elian, eyes unreadable. "You fought beside us when you could have hidden," she acknowledged. "Perhaps Mira's judgment of you deserves more consideration than I gave it." That night, a celebration honored the saved lives. Elian found himself welcomed into circles previously closed to him. Mira watched with bright eyes as her people accepted him, if tentatively. Later, as the festivities wound down, she approached him beneath the triple moonlight. "There is something I wish to show you," she said, offering her hand. "Something no outsider has ever seen." She led him deep into the forest beyond the village boundaries, where the vegetation grew denser and the bioluminescence more intense. They arrived at what appeared to be a solid wall of interwoven vines. "Close your eyes," Mira instructed. When he opened them again, the vine wall had parted, revealing a hidden grove where massive crystal formations erupted from the ground, each catching and amplifying the light of plants surrounding them. The effect was breathtaking. a cathedral of living light that shifted and danced with every breeze. The sacred grove, Mira whispered, the heart of our connection to this world. She guided him to a pool at the center, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the crystal spires and moons above. This is where we come to make our most important choices, she explained, her fingers entwining with his. To seek clarity when paths diverge. Their reflection in the water showed their differences, his solid form beside her luminescent grace. Yet something about the image seemed right, complementary rather than contradictory. Elian, she said, turning to face him, her patterns pulsing with emotion he was beginning to understand. I brought you here because I need to know. If your ship were repaired tomorrow, would you leave without looking back? The question hung between them as her hands found his face, her luminescence brightening in response to their proximity. In that moment, beneath alien stars in a grove of impossible beauty, the distance between their worlds seemed both vast and insignificant. Hunter's moon. The twin moons of Noctiva aligned perfectly overhead, bathing the village in silver-blue radiance. Tonight marked the Hunter's Moon Festival, the most sacred celebration in Lunari culture. Elian stood beside Mira at the edge of the ceremonial clearing, watching as villagers adorned themselves with bioluminescent paint that mimicked the natural patterns of their skin, but intensified them tenfold. Are you certain I should participate? Elian asked, eyeing the gathered Lunari. This seems deeply personal to your people. Mira smiled, dipping her fingers into a bowl of glowing pigment. The council granted permission. After your bravery against the predators, many see you as a fortunate omen. Her fingers traced cool lines across his cheekbones, down his throat. Besides, I've taught you the basic movements. The ceremonial paints tingled against his skin. Though he lacked the Lunari's natural luminescence, the borrowed glow transformed him, not into one of them, but into something between worlds. Mira's eyes lingered appreciatively on her handiwork, fingers lingering a moment too long at the hollow of his throat. Elder Teresh approached, his ancient face a map of light patterns that shifted with dignified slowness. The stars bring strangers who become friends, he pronounced formally, placing a woven crown of phosphorescent flowers on Elian's head. Tonight you honor us with your presence. Not everyone shared this sentiment. Across the gathering, Neva stood with a cluster of traditional hunters. Though she had acknowledged Elian's bravery, she remained convinced his presence threatened their way of life. Beside her stood Kale, a proud hunter who had made no secret of his long-standing intentions toward Mira, intentions now complicated by her obvious attachment to the skyborn stranger. The drums began, resonant instruments grown from hollow crystal trees. Dancers moved into the clearing as Mira pulled Elian forward. Remember what I taught you, she whispered. Feel the rhythm, not just with your ears but with your entire body. The dance began simply, concentric circles of Lunari moving in counterpoint. Elian followed Mira's lead, his archaeologist's precision serving him well as he mirrored the movements. As the tempo increased, partners formed, spinning together then apart. Mira's hands found his, her body moving with fluid grace that made his breath catch. You're a natural, she laughed as he executed a complicated turn. I have an excellent teacher, he replied, suddenly aware of how close they had drawn together, her luminescence brightening in response to his proximity. Across the clearing, Neva watched with narrowing eyes. She leaned toward Kale, whispering something that made the hunter's patterns flare with angry light. The celebration continued late into the night. As the formal dances concluded, the gathering broke into smaller groups for feasting and storytelling. Elian found himself welcomed at the Elder's fire, where Teresh asked him to share tales of Earth. The ancient Lunari listened intently as Elian described oceans, deserts, mountains, environments alien to forest-covered Noctiva. Later, as the festivities wound down, Elian sought a moment of quiet near the village boundary. The night air carried the sweet scent of night-blooming flowers, their perfume intoxicating after the exertions of the dance. You've bewitched them with your stories, came Kale's voice from behind him. The hunter approached, his patterns displaying aggressive ripples. Just as you've bewitched Mira. Elian turned slowly. I've only shared truth. As for Mira, she makes her own choices, does she? Kale moved closer. Or is she entranced by novelty, a curiosity that will abandon her once your ship is repaired? His hand rested meaningfully on the ceremonial dagger at his waist. Your kind always leaves. You take what you desire from worlds like ours, then return to your stars. That's not why I'm here, Elian replied evenly. I never intended. Intentions matter less than consequences, Kyle interrupted. The council may welcome you, but others question what changes you bring. Already our young ones speak of visiting the stars rather than honoring our traditions. Their confrontation was interrupted by Mira's arrival. She assessed the tension immediately, moving to stand between them. The ceremonial fires need tending, Kale, she said pointedly. Elder Teresh asked for you specifically. With a final glare at Elian, the hunter departed. Mira watched him go, troubled patterns rippling across her skin. He fears losing you, Elian observed quietly. He fears change, she corrected, turning to face him. As many do. She reached up, adjusting the flower crown that had tilted during his confrontation with Kale. But change comes regardless of our fears. Under the aligned moons, their faces close, the unspoken grew stronger. Elian's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. If my presence causes such discord, Mira silenced him by pressing her free hand against his chest. Your presence causes many things, Elian. Discord among some, yes. But also, her pattern shifted to a configuration he'd never seen before, intense and intricate. This is how we express feelings without words, she whispered. Feelings I've never shown to anyone. Understanding dawned in his eyes as she guided his hand to the patterns flowing across her skin, allowing him to feel the subtle vibration of emotion made visible. With gentle deliberation, she leaned forward until her lips met his, a human gesture she had asked him about days earlier. The kiss deepened as the twin moons shone overhead, two beings from different worlds finding a language that transcended both. Unaware of Neva watching from the shadows, her face troubled by what the future might bring. Worlds between stars dawn broke over the starfall trees with unusual brilliance. Elian woke in his dwelling to find a small delegation of Lunari craftspeople outside, led by Lyra. They carried materials, metal from sky stones, crystal components, and tools of unexpected sophistication. The council has decided, Lyra announced. We will help you repair your vessel. The decision had not come easily. Through Mira, Elian learned that the council had debated through the night. Elder Teresh had ultimately swayed the vote, arguing that helping Elian return home was not just an act of compassion, but also an opportunity to establish a connection between worlds. For 2 weeks, Elian worked alongside the Lunari, combining their knowledge with his. The Starseeker gradually transformed from wreckage to something spaceworthy, though modified with Noctivan technology that gave it an organic, luminescent quality. As the repairs neared completion, a shadow fell over Elian and Mira's deepening relationship. The reality of his departure could no longer be ignored. They spent their evenings in increasingly desperate conversation, searching for a solution to an impossible problem. Come with me, Elian suggested one night as they sat beneath the repaired ship. Earth would welcome you as an ambassador. We could bridge our worlds. Mira's patterns dimmed with sadness. My life force is connected to Noctiva, to our sacred groves and forests. Your scientists believe we evolved this luminescence, but it's more than biology. It's our bond to this place. She touched his face gently. I would wither among your stars just as you cannot stay forever in our forests. 3 days before the planned departure, Neva sought out Elian alone. Her approach was not hostile but resigned. You've changed us, she stated without preamble. Whether that change brings growth or destruction remains to be seen. I never meant to disrupt your way of life, Elian replied. Intention rarely aligns with outcome, Neva said. But I've come with a purpose. Mira suffers at the thought of your leaving, though she hides it well. She held out a small crystal, pulsing with internal light. This is from the heart of our sacred grove. Elder Teresh sent it, with an invitation. That evening, Elian followed Neva to a secluded clearing where the Council of Elders waited with Mira. Elder Teresh stepped forward, his ancient face solemn. In rare moments throughout our history, the Elder began, the boundaries between worlds thin. You arrived at such a moment, Elian Reeves of Earth. Now we stand at a crossroads. Teresh explained an ancient Lunari ritual, a binding that could create a connection between Elian and Noctiva, allowing him to return to Earth while maintaining a tether to their world and to Mira. Such bindings were rare, attempted perhaps once in a generation, and not without risk. If successful, Teresh concluded, you would carry part of our world within you and leave part of yourself behind. This would allow you to return should you choose, and would allow Mira brief journeys to your world without withering away from Noctiva's essence. And if unsuccessful? Elian asked quietly. Then the separation would be permanent, Mira answered, stepping forward. But I believe in this possibility. Her patterns displayed the same intense configuration he had seen during the hunter's moon, what he now understood to be the lunari expression of love. That night in the sacred grove, Elian and Mira underwent the ancient ritual. Surrounded by the council of elders, they shared both blood and luminescence, their life forces intertwining as the crystal from the grove's heart was split between them, half fashioned into a pendant for Elian, half remaining with Mira. Under the triple moons, they sealed their connection in the most profound way possible, bodies and spirits merging in a night of passion that transcended their biological differences. As Mira's luminescence enveloped them both, Elian felt the essence of Noctiva entering his being, not changing him but expanding him, creating space within his human existence for something more. Morning found them still embracing beneath the crystal spires. Mira's hand rested over Elian's heart where the pendant from the grove now hung. Already, impossibly, a faint luminescence pulsed beneath his skin in answer to her touch, subtle but undeniable. It worked, she whispered, wonder in her voice. The day of departure arrived with both celebration and solemnity. The repaired Starseeker hummed with combined human and lunari technology, ready for the journey home. The entire village gathered to witness this historic moment. Kale approached as Elian prepared for launch, his expression complex but no longer hostile. I underestimated the depth of your connection, he admitted. The elders say your bond will create a bridge between our peoples. A beginning, not an ending, Elian agreed, offering his hand in the human gesture of peace. Final goodbyes were exchanged, with Lyra, with a surprisingly emotional Neva, with Elder Teresh, who reminded Elian of the responsibility he now carried as the first human connected to their world. Mira was the last to approach as he stood at the ship's entrance. 3 moon cycles, she said, touching the crystal at his chest that matched her own. That is how long I can journey to your world before needing to return to Noctiva. And you to ours. I'll return before then, Elian promised, drawing her close. This isn't farewell. Their kiss held both promise and certainty, the certainty of 2 beings who had found each other across impossible distances and forged a connection that neither time nor space could sever. As the Starseeker rose above the canopy of the starfall trees, Elian watched Mira's figure grow smaller below. The pendant against his chest pulsed with warmth and light, a constant reminder that he carried part of Noctiva with him always. Within months he would return with an official diplomatic mission. Within a year, Mira would make her first journey to Earth. What began as a crash landing had become the foundation for a future neither of them could have imagined. The stars welcomed Elian back to their embrace as he set course for home, no longer just an archaeologist but a bridge between worlds. In the luminescent forest below, Mira placed her hand over her heart, feeling his presence despite the growing distance. The first threads of a tapestry being woven between 2 civilizations, and 2 souls who had found each other among the whispers of the starfall trees.